Welcome to the Lazy CEO Podcast, where Jim Schlexer, author of Great CEOs Are Lazy and founder of the CEO Project, features compelling experts and topics for CEOs of mid to large-size companies. Now, let's get started with the show.
Welcome, everybody, to another Lazy CEO podcast. My name is Jim Schlexer. I am your host. And today you are in luck. We have one of my partners, Sharon McGuire, co-hosting with me today. And we're going to just sort of work through the topic. And the topic today is, and hey, Sharon, say hello.
Hey, hi, everybody.
Sharon's a lot of fun. So we're going to have a good time today. Today, we're going to talk about succession planning, a little bit in the organization, but also for you as a CEO and how you think about succession and maybe some tools for you going forward. So the first element you want to put in place is the classic ABC rating of people. And I'm going to recommend you re-rate the people in your company, every year or so. And normally you're going to have about 20% A's and 60, 70% B's, and the balance are going to be C's. And when I say that, I mean A's are people that are materially overperforming their jobs. They are, and to you, as I'll sort of preview another tool we use, they would be promotable. They've outgrown the current job. They're more than capable in the current job, and they got juice. B's do the job. They're great. They show up every day. Awesome. Need them. C's underperforming the job.
Jim, can I ask a basic question?
Yeah.
When should you start succession planning?
Well, it's like Christmas shopping. It's never too early to start, right? So,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if you really can't start too early because I think of it as an organizational asset, and the talent you have and the capability of the talent, you want to grow that asset and you want to manage it. And if you don't understand what you have, then how do you manage it? So I'm going to say earlier is better. Sort of the ABC thing is we use that ranking for like promotion. Well, promotions I'll get to a little bit, but raises and bonuses and stock options and stuff like that, and new assignments. But I want to just sort of cross that against another thing. So think ABC, overperform, perform, underperform, and then think promotability. Not eligible for promotion, never going to be promoted. With development could be promoted, promotable right now, meaning you enter a job, you probably start as a C or a B. As you learn the job, you move up to a B, maybe an A, and that also drives promotability. And so this is called a 9-box exercise. So think of a grid, 3 boxes on one side, 3 on the other, 9 in total. A, B, C along the vertical axis, not promotable, promotable with work or not ready yet, and then promotable now on the right-hand side. And you could put all your names on this 9-box grid and go, all right, we got some people that are doing a great job. They're right smack in the middle of that graph. They're B's and they're not promotable yet. They might get there someday. We've got A's that are overperforming their job, but not promotable yet, right? So they'd be right in the middle at the very top. So that's okay. We work with those people. Those are going to be our future promotions. And then your upper right-hand corner, promotable and A player, you darn well better promote them, because what happens when an A player gets bored, they go find another job.
Yeah, you're going to lose them.
That's it. It's a retention thing. So that's a way to think about, how am I managing my people? Not only who do I need to think about promoting or throwing a big assignment to right now, because they're in that upper right-hand quadrant. And even a B that's promotable might be somebody to consider, but I got a view on that relative to managers. But these people, you want to give them more. A's that are not ready for promotion, you keep an eye on them, you groom them, you develop them. Everybody else, we're going to work on them over time, but they're probably not your next level of managers. So
you're building your bench. You're building your bench.
And you're managing it, right? And I actually say once you do the 9, that's kind of the overall view. And the big thing here is I'd say do it as a team, as a management team. Because I may think Sharon's an A, but other people may not think that, and we ought to talk that out. And there are some people that are really good at managing up to their manager, and they're not really good at managing across the organization, meaning building good collegial relationships with people, getting work done. So everybody across the organization thinks somebody's a jerk, and their boss thinks they're wonderful because they're there, sucking up and kissing
Yeah.
hind tail,
They're
right?
not, some people just aren't team players. They can't see the benefit of being a resource to multiple people.
That's it. That's exactly it. And so that's why it's good to get together as a team. I think the rule there, though, when you get together in a team, as you talk about your talent, is the talent is owned by the company, not by the manager. So sometimes managers will protect their talent. Like, oh, you're not taking her. She's amazing. She makes my life so much easier. I can give her work all day long and she's great. And it's for the exec team to say, you know what? She is a future, vice president or COO of this business. We need to give her some other exposures besides your one little department. We're going to move her. And
Right.
as a leader, it stinks, but you got to remember the company owns the talent, not the person. And so if the
Yeah.
best thing for the company is to move that person over to finance for a little while, so she learns finance and gets her ready for a bigger job, that's what we're going to do. And so
Yeah.
that's a hard conversation for people when you're losing talent. But I almost think of it like a compliment, when people seek the people in your organization because they're so good, then you're doing a darn good job at developing talent. And that's an incredible skill as a manager. I worked with one company as a CFO, Bart, and Bart was the most amazing developer of talent in the entire organization. Over time, if you looked at every single leadership position in that company, they started working for Bart at one point or another.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was his legacy. Like I
Right.
grew the whole leadership of this entire company,
Right.
over time. So nothing wrong with it. Take it as a compliment, even though it
Yeah.
stinks. The other thing we talk about is doing a depth chart. Basically, here you take your organizational chart, and then against every person is just thinking about readiness for promotion, right? So there's RN, ready never.
Uh-oh. I was going to say that's
Yeah.
ready now. Ready now.
No, the dreaded RN, ready never. Ready zero, R0 is ready now, actually, in my little you can change it, do whatever you think makes sense, right? Do
Right.
1, 2, 3, ABC, I don't care. And then ready 2, 2 years out, R3, 3 years out. And so, you want to look not at every level that I've got a couple of people, I've got a funnel of R0s, R1s, R2, R3s that I'm working to develop into that next level. I've got somebody who's an R0 and sitting at a senior level. I've got to go, what am I going to do with that person? They're probably in the upper right-hand corner on my 9 box.
Yes.
And they show up on my org chart and I go, okay, gosh, I'm definitely going to name that person as my succession candidate if I got hit by a bus, right? Or ate a bad clam or whatever. But I like you said, I might lose them. So I'm going to have to
Right.
challenge them if they're an R0. If I can't promote them right
Right.
now, I got to challenge them.
You move them to a different department. They gain exposure. Like you were saying, go to finance, do a deep dive, 3 months, 6 months in finance. You move them around so they're intellectually stimulated.
Yep. And I have a couple of rules on how you do that. I love jump them to another department, all over that. Great idea. But also breadth, depth, and cross functionality. So breadth is you're managing one team. Now you're going to manage 2 teams.
Okay.
Right. So you're not doing anything different, just more of breadth.
Right.
And, geez, okay, that's going to be a challenge. That'll keep me stimulated because now I got to manage.
Challenge.
Yep. Depth is, you were managing the test process. Now you're going to manage the inbound testing as well, which you never did before. So a whole new area that deepens your experience in, let's say, quality, right? Or engineering. I'm going to say you're doing design engineering. I'm going to add manufacturing engineering to you. You now have both. And so that's not just the same, more of the same. That's more different, but similar, right? And then I love cross functionality. If I'm not ready to move them over to finance, I go, hey, we got this big project that we're analyzing our supply chain. I want you to lead it.
Yeah.
And you're going to have engineers and purchasing people and finance people, and you're going to lead that whole group with all those different disciplines and try to come up with this answer. It's really challenging. I
Yeah.
think.
Special project, special project.
Yeah, well, there is the dreaded, end of
Yeah.
my career. We're going to move you to special project, but this time we really mean it. It's not like that. Um, hey, I got assigned to special projects. Ooh, sorry.
Yeah. When should we plan your retirement luncheon?
Exactly. So, no, but this time we mean it. And you'll be amazed. I've seen engineers like go into these cross-functional teams, and they go, now I get why the finance
Oh,
people think about things the
right.
way they do. I get it now.
Yeah.
They're not crazy. They have a reason for thinking these things. And it like boom, your whole expanded your brain. It's
Or more importantly, you can identify why they're doing things, but you can also lend your expertise and say, well, maybe it doesn't have to be done that way. Maybe what you're asking is for a report that nobody reads. And so maybe we should reassess some of your projects on your team.
hopefully they're open to that conversation. But I love the collegiality of that. I mean, yes, that's perfect. So when we think about, I talked a little bit about putting people into management, and here's where we talked about moving A's up. And the reason why is that I always ask the question, A's recruit A's, right? They don't want to have people that waste their time and aren't great at what they do, and they have to tell them 4 times, or they have to watch over their work all the time.
Mhm.
But here's the question. I go, what do B's hire?
B's don't hire C's, do they, Jim?
They do. That's it. Exactly.
Ugh.
Yeah. So that's the problem, because they're intimidated they would never hire an A, because that'd be really intimidating.
Right.
And
Scary.
frankly, an A might not work for them. They might assess the boss. And I know I've had this. I went to one company in particular. I interviewed with this fellow, and I'm like, he's a B. He'll be working for me soon enough. And that's basically what happened.
Mm.
I took the job anyway, because I knew I could work that out over time, and it did.
Right. Right.
But normally an A wouldn't work for a B, because they go, what am I going to learn from this person? How are they going to challenge me? They're just okay at their job. I want to be great at my job. And so B's hire B's maybe if they're lucky, and C's a lot, because they're non-threatening. So you want A's in management in the hiring positions, because they want switched on high level B's or A's, because it makes their life easier, and they're not threatened by it. They're like, look, the best thing you can do is do an amazing job and get me and you both promoted.
Right. Right.
So game on, let's do this. Right.
Yeah. It's a double play.
It is. So that conversation, that talent conversation, once or twice a year as a management team, the 9-box assessment of everybody. I think you have to be open to other people's feedback. I wouldn't rate him or her just the way you did. I would rate them a little lower or a little higher, so you got to be open to that. And then the org chart to think about, okay, what's my depth? Do I have 1 or 2 people in every position, or do I have some single points of failure that I got a problem? I need to build capability. The interesting thing is that particularly top level leadership positions, director level and up, these are developmental positions for future leaders. And so you've got to look at how many people have promotability in your senior ranks. So imagine an older company where you've got people who've been in the jobs for a while. I think you've worked for some, Sharon, in your life.
Yep. Yep.
I have too, right? And you're like, that person's been in the job 10 years. They're not going anywhere. Consuming a developmental position. That's how you got to think about it as a leadership position. And you might be okay with a few of those, like that blocks everybody below them from moving up. But if you have all senior blocking people, you're going to start losing junior people underneath, because they go, I got to wait for somebody to die.
Right. Right. There's no room for me here.
And you've probably had that. I know I did. I'm like, I look at the people in position. I'm like, they've been there forever. They're going to be there till they retire.
Yeah.
I have to leave. It's the only way to get promoted.
Yeah.
So as a leader, as a CEO, I think you got to say, I need a certain proportion of my top level positions that I'm actively developing people for bigger jobs.
Right.
And even if that means moving somebody who's doing a pretty darn good job somewhere else to open up the slot so I can put a up and comer in that position, that's what we got to do.
That's a little tough though, Jim, because then, you say the person has been working in this position and doing it well for 10 years, but not going to move up to that next level. So you're going to put them on the special project.
Exactly
Move
what I
up
was thinking.
the A player. And I mean, that the emotions around that person that's just been moved out, that's tough to manage too.
It is, and it is. There's a lot of ego involved, but I think at some point you got to have a for the better good kind of conversation with them. If they really are a patriot, they love the company. We give them a big meaty job. It's just not blocking a developmental job anymore, right? So, and we say special projects, but I'm not kidding. I mean, there are sort of projects that need to be done that don't sit in any one person's role. A really senior, seasoned person that could be a great leader for a project like that. So there are roles for them. There aren't a bunch of roles, but there are, for a couple of slots, there are roles. And once in a while, somebody's close to retirement. You say, look, I'm going to throw a little extra money at you. We're going to throw a big party. We'll give you a consulting contract, and you're going to move to Florida. Right. And maybe they're okay with that. Maybe their spouse has been saying, hey, when are you going to be done? I'm tired of this work stuff. So maybe
you got to be careful of that, because there could be some other people that feel like they're okay. I'm the next one. I'm the next one that's going to move out, So Harry left and he was given a package and he's a consultant. Well, I was working next to Harry for 5 years.
Yeah. Well, this is where management comes in. You probably have to assure some of those people and say, hey, you're not on the list. So, and hopefully Harry was good with it if you did it right. So I want to move over just a little bit to CEO succession, particularly. So rule number 1 on CEO succession is the candidates that you're considering to succeed you as CEO need to come from the center of the business. And when I say that, I mean the money-making portions of the business. So that means, if I'm in a professional services business, they're probably either leading a big delivery team, or they're on a big they run a big chunk of my business development, acquiring new clients, because that's how we make our money. And so those people have a better understanding of the ins and outs of the business than other people in other types of roles. In a manufacturing operation, it might be an engineering lead, or it might be an operational lead. It might even be finance in some cases. It might even be sales, but it wouldn't be HR, probably.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're thinking about, okay, who and what slots do I need to have open, they should be in the value creating processes in the company. Those are the people that you're going to want to elevate into, CEO or president kind of positions. One of the jobs I love, I did it for a while. I was actually just talking to a CEO the other day about it, is product manager. I think that's the greatest, future CEO development job around.
Why is that?
Well, particularly in technical businesses, they've got the technical of the engineering and the design and and they've got the commercial of, well, how are we going to price it and how are we going to market and what's the margin on it? So they're thinking with both pieces of their brains, which is just how a CEO thinks about the business, right? Now they don't have the talent, people, other things, but it's a good starter job to get them ready for the bigger job. So I always liked looking at product managers, people that ran chunks of the business like that as future leaders. They have more like a P&L than anybody else. We like to see 2 or 3 candidates if you can. Sometimes you can't. And you have to be ready. And we go back in history, that if you pick one, the other ones might leave. In fact,
right. Well, for sure they are, because they want that CEO. Go back to Jack Welch, right? And that was an interesting thing I was thinking about, is that when Jack Welch was about to announce his successor, there was no formal or, advertised who it was going to be until the moment that it was released that here's my successor.
Yep.
And the other candidate gone, picked up, gone. And I think maybe went to Home Depot or something like that.
Well, there were 2 candidates. One went to Boeing, one went to Home Depot. Yeah.
Okay.
Nardelli was one. And I remember the other guy, McInerney, maybe. Anyway, I think Jack flew around to all of them and told them before it went public. But look, all the smart recruiters were basically saying, hey, listen, if you don't get the job.
Exactly.
Because that one was really public, but you have to be ready when you pick one that the other one or two are going to go, particularly if you pick somebody relatively younger, they go,
Yeah.
they've got 5 or 10 years in this job.
Right.
I'm not waiting 5 or 10 years for my shot at the CEO gig. I've got to
Right.
go somewhere else. So you could very well lose that individual. I think the other thing to think about is, do you want to bring the next leader from the inside or the outside?
Right.
And hiring from the outside, no matter the people at Who, the book Who, which we recommend, they say they get a 80% success rate. Most people will tell you it's 50% for
From
executives.
outside.
Yeah, because I
Okay.
just I don't know this person. I don't know how they
Yeah.
work. I don't know if they're going to fit the culture.
The culture. Yeah.
That's a big one, right?
Yeah.
So the rule here, and there's a lot of scholarly support for it, that if the business is doing well, you hire from the inside. We're not looking to make a change here. We're looking to do more of the same, iterate it, improve it. If we're like, we are going down the wrong path, we need a change in strategy, then you go outside. Now, that's not like 100% perfectly true, but
Okay.
70% true on either side. But if it's like we're in big trouble and we need big changes, you bring an outsider in, because there's no sacred cows. There's no pre-existing relationships. There's no history. They're going to ask all the questions and be pretty objective
Okay.
in what they're going to do. You bring an insider in and they know all the history and all the people and all the relations, and they're better because they have that social network, which is an asset for an executive, but they're also inhibited by their social network too at some level.
Mm-hmm.
So inside, outside, and people are always, well, we got to search outside. No, if the business is doing really well and you've got a good candidate and you know them and trust them, boom, that's your person. You're done.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think when people hire outside a lot, it's a sign that they have a weakness in their talent development capability.
Right. Right.
Right.
And why would you stay around if you were an A player, if you're never going to be going into that position? There's no path for you to get there.
Every time there's a good job, they hire somebody from the outside.
Yeah.
This is bonkers. I'm not hanging around for that deal. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe just the last thing I was thinking about was the CEO. Like, so if you're CEO and you're going to retire, whether you're the founder or just a hired gun or whatever, where do you go? And people go, well, of course I'm going to go to the board. Well, I just want to caution you on that one. There is a lot of research that says that's not the best option for a CEO. And the reason why is if the CEO, particularly if they go to like chairman or chairperson of the board, if your former boss who got you the job, right, because they recommended you for the job, goes up and they're now the chairperson and they're now in charge of your comp and whether you're going to get fired or not and approving your strategy, and
Oh boy.
right, it has like a chilling effect. And that's what the research says, that CEOs that come in with their boss on the board, the former CEO on the board, they start some new things, but they don't kill anything because they don't want to have to deal with the former CEO who probably started that thing. Right? They
Right.
go, hey, Joe, you know that thing that you loved and thought was an amazing idea? I'm about to kill it. Right?
Right.
So they don't. They do after 2 or 3 years, but it takes 2 or 3 years, as opposed to the CEO rolls off the board, doesn't go into the board, or they consult for a little while. They can immediately get to the business of killing sacred cows if that's what's needed, and starting their own initiative. So they tend to hit the ground running a little faster and have a little more impact when they don't have this sort of wet blanket over the party, which is CEO looking down at them from the board position, which kind of stinks because I know a lot of CEOs are like, well, geez, that's part of my retirement plan. I'm going to go work on the board. But that's not actually the best thing for the company, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that was sort of a quick run through sort of internal succession, CEO succession. And I don't know, what didn't I talk about, Sharon, that people might be curious about?
One question I have is, what happens when the CEO, the successor's announced, everybody is happy about it, moves into that role, it doesn't work out?
Yeah.
Who steps in to make that correction?
Yeah. So when we talk about board composition, one of the roles we want one of the board members to have is potential CEO replacement.
Okay.
Yeah. So you want an operator who's been a CEO probably of something your size or bigger, maybe, who in a pinch, because we're in a pinch, right? We just unexpectedly have to get rid of this CEO for whatever reason. Somebody's going to step in. Now, they may or may not be your long-term solution. We don't know.
Could be interim.
Yeah, that's more likely. I don't love interim, but if you don't have an obvious succession candidate ready to go, interim can work until you figure things out. Particularly if you're public, you want to tell the market, hey, so-and-so who's a super seasoned CEO stepped in for now until we figure out what our longer term plan is, and people will kind of take a big breath and wait for that. So on the board, hopefully there's somebody who, like, if the wrong thing happened or we had to get rid of somebody, at least for a little while, they can step in and they can run the company. And a lot of like founders will consciously compose a board with that in mind as part of their estate planning. So they'll go, hey, if I have an untimely demise, right?
Okay. Yeah.
My spouse isn't really positioned to run this business for a bunch of whatever set of reasons. Maybe they are, but let's say they're not.
Okay.
So they want somebody on the board who can step in and run the company, unless there's somebody obvious, and then hopefully have an orderly sale if that's what the family wants. So many times for a founder, we go, I don't have to worry about this. Actually, this is part of your estate planning.
Right. Right.
What happens to your biggest asset if you have a motorcycle accident or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. The other question I have is, you see these scenarios where CEOs or outside CEOs come in during a crisis.
Yeah.
And that's only, a short, limited time usually. And how are they identified?
Yep.
And how, I guess it depends on what the type of crisis is, how long they're in place. But you see that especially in public companies.
Yeah, there's a specialty of turnaround people, turnaround CEOs.
Right.
And they're kind of known. Recruiters know who they are. It's weird, because they do get paid well, because if they turn the company around, they'll do well for themselves. But they are not the kind of people you want to invite to your cocktail parties. Like, they're kind of no, they're kind of arrogant, prickly, aggressive, and therefore in a crisis situation, they will make hard decisions.
Right. They serve a purpose.
And they are expendable, because once you've turned it, somebody who's got that kind of energy and that kind of lack of relationship skills is not the person you want to run the company after it's been turned around. So they come in, they break all the china, they do what they have to do to get it turned around. Love them for that. But then you're immediately going to have to go and get rid of them and bring somebody in who's an ongoing, now that it's stabilized, can run the company going forward.
Yeah.
So anyway, hey, on that note, we're gonna stop. Sharon, this was a lot of fun. We'll have to do this again.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Lazy CEO Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the CEO Project. At the CEO Project, we work with CEOs to help them grow their business. And our members represent billions of dollars of revenue and profit. And frankly, amongst all of us, we've probably made every mistake in the book, including some you haven't made yet. So if you want to learn from the experience of a bunch of really seasoned CEOs, we're a great place to hang out. In this podcast, what you're going to hear are some of those ideas, concepts, and things that are just going to help you on your journey. If you want to find out more, reach out to us at theceoproject.com, or you can contact me personally at jim@theceoproject.com. Happy listening.
Thanks for listening to the Lazy CEO Podcast. We'll see you next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes, and check out our website, www.theceoproject.com.